This week, what happened to free apps, plugins, music? Is free dead on the web? We'll investigate.
Then, the Melania Jacket incident. What it tells us about social media, fake news, and calculated chaos.
And Instagram is now taking on YouTube and releasing a worthy adversary.
It's a frothy week on Future Forward. I'm Gene DeRose.
And I'm Steve Rosenbaum. Let's launch. All right. You know, at first I thought my head was going to explode. There was so much news this week, but we boiled it down to, I think, the stuff that matters, and it's going to be good. I'm feeling a little bit like I'm ready to fight the bear this week. So
yeah, I agree, and we have the benefit of trying to be futury about it. So let's do it.
All right. So let's start with loving and hating, and you know, I think we may get some mail on this one, but you seem willing to take on an adversary, so go ahead, bring it on.
So it's I've been syncing these lately, and I don't feel bad about that. So and I'll introduce them both at once. This week I'm loving audiobooks, but hating Audible. Audible.com, Audible the app, Audible the company that was acquired by Amazon several years ago. First, the loving. You know, we're in a state right now where, despite, as we'll see later on, video's ascendancy with podcasts and all manner of other audio, you know, there's a contender on the other side of media. And I think with all of our multitasking, the concentration required to simply listen to something on audio, often while you're doing something else, I actually think, in a way, it's a loving of probably podcasts too. But the idea of using technology and the internet while you're working out, while you're driving, while you're cooking, while you're doing other things, I really like it. But more importantly, audiobooks themselves have gotten a lot better. Look for the ones that are read either by an author who does a great job or something special has been brought to them. And I would point people to, by far, the greatest audiobook that has been released to date, which I may have already mentioned in the past, Lincoln in the Bardo, which is already a terrific novel that alternates chapters between fiction and nonfiction about Civil War era Lincoln. But it has actors like Nick Offerman and a whole wide range, and it is so wonderfully put together. Books don't have to be like that when they're audio, but they are.
All right, so we'll put the link in the comments so that everybody can check out Lincoln in the Bardo.
Lincoln in the Bardo. It was a bestseller, but it's also a terrific audiobook. So here's the thing with Audible, and I have been watching that up close. Used to know Don Katz, the founder, pretty well, and an incredible company, well ahead of its time, had a faith and he stuck to it. I think this probably has little to do, my problems have little to do with the company that started out as Audible, and more to do with this second and third generation of companies that tend to be owned by big dinosaurs like Amazon. We've talked about eBay and others before. It just doesn't work as well as it should. You know, there's nothing more annoying than going from my car on my iPhone to my iPad and back to my iPhone while listening to an audiobook, and every single time it fires up the book as if it's just starting. I mean, how do you lose your place? I have lots of complaints about Apple's handling of podcasts, but at least they keep track of where you are, just
And Apple, you get what you pay for, right? Because they're free.
Yeah. So it's really a shame, and you know, in some ways, that's more than anything my complaint.
Here's what I don't get about Audible. I find the pricing head-bangingly frustrating.
Oh,
like explain to me why Bezos, who understands unit pricing, like, is it just that he doesn't care and he's like, oh, you know, audiobooks, but like, I want to be able to go in and buy an audiobook, and every time they shove me into some kind of a subscription thing.
I think largely you nailed it in that they don't care. You know, if you want to use Amazon's shift away from the beginnings of Prime's focus on a wide range of content to saying, forget about that, we just want to have Game of Thrones mega hits. The numbers don't make sense to him. He's disinterested. The handshakes between Amazon and Audible, it's madness. It's insane. Yeah. You can't even buy them. They push you over to Amazon in order to buy the books, and there's a little kind of war thing going on. It's really sad, and it's unfortunate.
All right. Well, we've loved and we've hated, and now let's jump right into the content, which is free. And here's the thing I don't get. I mean, we both remember the magic of going to the App Store, and there were all these free apps, and this was free, and that was free, and you know, so I guess looking in the rearview mirror, was that just a lost leader to get us hooked? Like, did they know all along free was going to be gone?
I
Yeah.
don't think they knew. I wouldn't say they knew it. I think part of it is the ongoing experiment of how advertising might work and can you make money off of it. Part of it has to do with the greater environment around, which is to say the web and Facebook being free and YouTube being free, but also how the iPhone itself, you know, kind of works. Steve Jobs, could he care less? You know, is he making 30% money off that, or does he just want to sell you the upgrades on their on the systems over and over again? I think that, you know, people that make businesses out of the apps, unless they're ancillary, I don't think advertising is proving to be a way that makes sense. It's terrible. You know, it's a bad experience. Yeah. So that's part of it.
So I'm going to tell a story of woe that has kind of a happy sort of ending. You know, I do a lot of work on WordPress. I have 5 or 6 sites. I manage them all. It used to be that for all kinds of nifty things, there were WordPress plugins that were free that did a really good job. Yeah. The only problem is WordPress would upgrade to another version number and the developer wouldn't upgrade the app, and all of a sudden there'd start to be hinky problems. We've now there's now a parting of the ways where there's the free, which leads you to pro, and really pro has everything in it you kind of need. Like, they've taken out, oh, you mean you want to have that big ugly thing off the screen? Well, you got to pay, you know, $14 or $39 or $8 a month or something. But the other thing, and this is maybe where the app business or the plugin business has parted, is like building plugins is fun. If you're a developer, it's interesting. You can invent something and people use it and you get good feedback. But then you have to actually maintain it. And that's not fun. That's like customers and support and tickets and problems and upgrades. And so the bigger plugins have become businesses, and they've got real developing teams, and they support things, and they answer tickets. And you just have to make a decision if you're running on the WordPress platform. If you're serious, you're going to pony up and buy the high-end paid pro versions that have real long-term history and aren't going away.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, one thing I've noticed in the split, whether it's a business split that you're talking about between free and pro, or just kind of plus pricing in general, whether it's on apps or other places, it's gotten more sophisticated, which is to say it's not obvious anymore whether you should just get the one thing or pay the big money. You know, like it's like right at that edge of pain. You know, I even noticed it last night on an on-demand movie that we were, you know, normally I just watch it once because they charge like $25 or something. But if they're charging $8.99 to own it versus $3.99 to watch it once, you're like, why not do it? So I think that's part of what's going on in the greater sense. I also want to correct or amend something I said earlier. For the big, and it's kind of like what you were saying, for the big guys that have whole systems operating within the world of, say, you know, iOS. Like Facebook makes a lot of money off of advertising that's mobile advertising, but they don't have to have the junk remnant crap ads that feed through the Apple system, right? It's just part of its own sort of system in the news feed and everywhere else. So it's kind of ironic that they're able to make a mint off of that stuff, but others have no formula, and Apple's done nothing to let us have. You know, I think it goes back in some ways to Apple being terrible historically at social. If ads can't be social, they don't even belong anywhere anymore.
By the way, somewhere in Cupertino, somebody just shuddered those crap low-end ads that filter through the Apple system.
I don't even think Apple disagrees. It's terrible, you know, game systems that just advertise games to you.
So what do you make of this trend toward getting away from installed apps and toward progressive web apps? Like there's a lot of buzz about it. Progressive web apps are going to be essentially cloud-based little social nuggets that look like apps, behave like apps, but don't require you to go to the App Store. Apple's going to hate that. There's going to be a war about trying to keep, you know, Apple's going to wave its hands in the air and say, wait, this isn't a trusted developer because they haven't gone through our system of beating up, you know, is a progressive web apps going to be the future?
Yeah, well, yes. And version.
Yes. Okay.
Philosophically, they will. I don't know if that system of PWA, you know, that I'm barely understanding myself at this point, is what it is. But here's what I think is partly going on: is I really think it used to be that the free version of any number of apps was a business model in and of itself. For whatever reason, it was ancillary to a print property, or it had advertising or whatever. It's starting to emerge that in the world where there's now 50 million apps out there, or 100 million or whatever, it's a way of sampling or teasing or letting people in the door. They have to do it, you know. But it's I find it immensely unsatisfying, because I don't think something free, call it a sample, but I worry that it's really getting into a bad mode. You know, it also should be said that, you know, micropayments and the blockchain and things like this are starting to introduce ways that finally we might do micropayments without it being a pain in the butt. So content providers, but this may be more about writers and video and audio creators than app owners. But I think this is going to be a big curveball in the future.
So the answer to the question number one for this episode, is free dead? And the answer is yes, free's dead.
I don't know. I wouldn't say so, because for the big guys, it's, I always say this, but in the internet, it's very and don't get caught in between, right? For certain ones, they're going to be able to do that for a very long time. You know, I almost announced that I was loving Spotify this week because I was mulling it in the context of your question, and we're going to get to Spotify as a coded to this section, and I'll just preface it by saying I pay the $10 a month for Spotify, right? I don't know if their business model would work if everyone did that, but for me, it's wonderful, you know, and so that's kind of a paid content model. But of course, the medium matters a lot, and so as you go from video to audio to apps to journalism, maybe it's different.
So we debated whether or not we were going to dive into the Melania thing, and I think it's just, to me, maybe I just need to talk it through with you and let the listeners, our pod friends,
let's iterate,
chime in. But I really do need to take a swing at it. So where should we be? You know, let's just reiterate for those 3 people in the universe who didn't follow the jacket controversy. Melania was flying. She's, you know, the public statement was on her own. She decided she wanted to go down and see the children. We'll never know whether that's true or not. She got on the airplane wearing a jacket that was photographed only from the side. So it wasn't like she showed it off, and maybe that wasn't. People, by the time the plane landed, everyone knew that the jacket said on the back, "I don't really care, do you?"
Yep. And it should be noted, and we're going to include a link here, that a story is emerging on the tail end of this that may or may not have legs, that that is close to identical in Italian translation to a famous from the 20s fascist phrase that, you know, theoretically Melania, who grew up speaking Italian in Slovenia and had a father who was, you know, involved in all that, you know, oppression, at least as a party apparatchik, maybe this was intentional or foolishly blasé, and we just don't know the answer. But the question is anything not planned these days?
Well, yeah. All right, so hold on. So I have really strong feelings about this. Let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
There is no chance that wasn't on purpose. Now, we'll talk for a minute about who's on purpose, but whenever any celebrity who's going to have their picture taken goes out in public, musician, comedian, actor, they have a phalanx of people around them, stylists. They roll in a wardrobe thing that has jackets and shoes and it's always, there is no possible way that she reached in her closet, being the clothes horse that she is, and pulled out a $39 Zara thing and threw it on. That's just not how the world of being photographed as a celebrity works. So I do not accept that it was an accident. I don't accept that no one saw the words. Even if there's a whole debate about whether she could she read it? Does she speak English? Whatever. Nonsense. Everyone saw it. Everyone signed off on it. her chief of staff signed off on it. Her publicist signed off on it. Her fashion design, like everybody saw it.
Well, I would just interject that it was intentional, but as we've seen, the Trump administration vacillates between hard-hitting, strategic, intent things and complete buffoonery in how they manage or process things thoroughly enough. So in some ways, I think it's just a strong possibility that it's like her plagiarized speech at the convention, which is very intentional, but perhaps John Kelly never saw it.
Totally disagree. At the convention, there was someone involved. They wrote it. There was no way to know those words weren't original until, in this case, everyone standing around her. And the reason why I'm passionate about this is, okay, I'll give you the gimme. Maybe it was a mistake when she got on the plane. But then on the plane, while they were flying and they landed, social media blew up. And when she got off the plane,
I generally agree.
And when she got off the plane, she put it back on. So the question, and the one that I think is troubling and worth getting at for a minute in terms of how we all behave in this new social media world that we live in is, did it come from the White House? And did they say, look, if you're flying down there, we're going to send over something we want you to wear? Was it a White House chaos strategy play? Or was it Melania sending some kind of coded message like, I'm doing this because I was told to, but I really, there's some complicated relation.
I just want to parse again, because yes, it could be that we don't completely agree. But what I'm also saying at a certain level is that while they may have full intent up and down the line of authority and who decides, they have tended to not do their homework enough to know, just like you said, what the details are. Gene,
it said, I don't care. This is not complicated parsing.
No, but I guess what I'm referring to is my point about the connection to fascism itself. Right?
No. That I think is a longer stretch.
It's like an alt-right Easter egg,
Because
that has been said. Yeah, okay. So I agree with that.
But if the other thing is, you can't name a time in the history of the Republic when a first lady has worn a message on her back. I mean, this is all right. And here's one other thing, and then I'll be done ranting.
I don't know. I wouldn't go too far on that, because there are things in the past that have been messages in certain ways or whatever. But here's the other. But hold on. I got to just justifying anything, by the way.
here's the other thing I have to get off my. Let's keep in mind this is the same first lady who vanished for a month.
Crazy.
We still don't know where she went. We don't know whether she was being held in the White House against her will. We don't know whether or not she actually had some disease. We have no for a month. And then Trump's reaction was she had a bad patch.
Yeah, and look.
I mean, did she have a meltdown? Was she with a psychiatrist? No, but how we don't know that as a nation. These are not little things to not know.
And
anyway.
What I also prefer to kind of focus on as we edge on here is the technology factor in it, which has to do with just like with her disappearance, that this stuff gets drummed up and circled and cycled in social media to an amazing degree. Also, that people have their phones. Everything is captured today. And that may be by part of the intent, or not part of the intent. I have no idea. It's going to be really interesting because, as people have said, they may be so cynical about things that this is, not just that they didn't mind this happening, but that they don't mind kind of the outrage. But I would not underestimate, alongside the evil, the buffoonery.
Well, calculated chaos is the phrase we used in the opening, and I think that's worth, it literally is like, let's feed some red meat to the press animals.
I agree.
And so the fact that we're talking about it makes us complicit, right? I mean,
yeah, I agree. Let's move on.
I'm still.
Yeah. It hurts.
Can I just say this in case there's any chance this gets out to the larger world? Would someone who knows the answer, there is someone, a handler, a media person, a disgruntled press person, somebody, there's someone an airline attend, someone flying the plane. There's someone that can tell the world, hey, we know what actually happened. Like, I'd go back to, when did she leave the hospital? Like, why was, anyway, okay, enough. I'm gonna, well, all right. So let's get to segment 3, which in its own right is very, very important, and in some ways also interesting in ways that maybe didn't get coverage. Instagram TV. I happen to have some inside data here.
Let's hear it.
So Facebook knows that their core audience is stagnant and aging. They know this. They know their Instagram audience is young and vibrant and growing. Facebook wants to win in the video space. They built and tested Facebook Watch, and I think given the fact that I'm a video guy and a lifelong video guy, and I'm not either using it or publishing to it or sharing with it, it kind of laid an egg. Didn't light the world on fire. Not to say they're shutting it down, but this is a great big strategic Facebook play in video.
I agree, and we're going to spend the time talking about it in depth for what it is, but I want to also make sure to note that it's kind of a marker for the maturity and significance of Instagram as an asset and Facebook as a kind of a more diversified company. Sure, we know the VR stuff is coming up the pipe and everything else, but they really haven't had a second thing that possibly could be as big as they are, the way Google had YouTube, et cetera, and let's face it, 2 years ago, they rose to the challenge of Snapchat and have decimated Snapchat.
Yep.
And Instagram is a big deal. They opened their announcement of this by noting that they now have 1 billion regular monthly uniques. And I have to say, before we analyze it, they've not made a wrong move in the 3 or 4 moves that they've made in the last 5 or 7 years that are significant. Adding video, emphasizing vertical, adding stories. But this is a big deal.
Yeah.
What do you think of vertical video as part of it? Just the way it is?
As somebody that holds a phone a lot of my day like this, doing that, kind of hard to do that. So, I think if you want a massive audience and you can make it 5% more comfortable, I mean, you tell me, is horizontal video 10% less comfortable to you? 20, 30?
I don't have a pain threshold on that. Maybe it's just my OCD-ness, so I'll do either, and it doesn't matter one way or the other. I don't want to get caught doing the wrong things, so I'll often instinctively shoot things this way and then realize I'm putting a little sideways rectangle into my, square vertical feed. And so, but the kids don't make such mistakes. And let's face it, this is a byproduct not of the horizontal view that we have of the world, but of the selfie and the social and the backwards facing camera look. And that's why it's there as much as anything. And so it's important that way. I mean,
I don't think that theatrical films are going to be produced in horizontal.
But
and
boy,
I think
it's a big deal about calling it vertical video over and over again, just so that people are clear. And it means that you are not going to see YouTube videos and these videos in the same place. It's really like the idea that we're being forced to go to one place to see these things is a challenge to creators.
So I'm willing to just kind of go out on a little bit of a limb here. I think Instagram video is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I think that there's a creator community that's ready to grow into it. I think YouTube has played fast and loose with the YouTuber makers for too long. I think that I think that Instagram is fresh. I think that the audience is there. I think now Instagram has also done an extraordinary job of keeping almost everything on the platform positive and upbeat and warm and not controversial. And so the question is, what happens when the YouTubers move over to Instagram and want to start their slightly edgier, slightly darker, slightly more controversial stuff, how is Instagram going to react to that? Are they going to?
That's a really good point, and perhaps the form factor, or at least the more than 15 seconds part of it, by definition, opens up to that. The only thing that I scratch my head as you're saying that I can think of that's on there right now that is ever edgy are things like the Now This News quick 15-second hard-hitting stuff. But you're right. I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue, but I suspect you are also right about becoming a big deal. But here's my question for you. They released this both as something that will exist within the existing legacy Instagram app and also be IGTV, its own standalone app. Is it relevant? Are they hedging their bets? Will they become separate assets in a way? What do you think?
So let's remember, Facebook has a history of claiming new territory with apps. When Messenger came out, lots of kicking and screaming, lots of unhappiness. They were basically like, wah, 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 we're going to be an app, deal with it. I think the app gives them the opportunity to build more of a unique product. I think it represents their seriousness about getting video right, and they don't have to.
You're right about something. They handshake it in a reasonably decent manner that I thought would offend me between Facebook and Messenger. So maybe there's something in that can work out well.
So for those of us,
I just wanted to add. I'm sorry, because you were saying it in a way against YouTube, and I agree with you. YouTube is such a chaotic mess that nonetheless makes a fortune off of its advertising, that I think bringing in a sort of a systematic approach, and they're making a big point, they're almost positioning it as Vimeo in a way, the quality version of YouTube. But is everyone going to run and publish on it right away?
Well, so here's the thing that I need to spend more time understanding. Clearly, they're talking about creating a revenue stream for creators.
Yes.
If I were a YouTuber, I would basically ask two questions, which is one, how much of my existing audience is already on Instagram, so I can literally port them over by saying, hey, I'm over here now. And two, how much are they going to pay me? And if the answer is they're going to pay me better than YouTube, and they're not going to jerk me around, and my audience is fine with me moving, I would certainly be testing both platforms right now.
Yeah, which is not necessarily easy. I mean, we have some respect for the skill it takes to produce these things. I also think that they are going to start this with a lot of big advertiser energy in place that's going to pull people towards it. And it'll be interesting to see what the form of that will take. I'm still astonished, though, about this idea, as a traditional media video guy, this idea that they're changing the dynamics of what is viral. The idea that something will be created that won't go and spread in a decentralized way around the internet because it can only be seen here. Boy, I have a hard time orienting myself towards that as a strategy. But when you've got 1 billion users, this is a little bit of a 1999 AOL issue, right? You can afford to have a whole universe under your roof.
And with that, my friend, we have chewed through another hour of the future and come to the end of our allotted time together. That being said, though, I will only say this, as we look toward next week, we're coming into the middle of the summer. It's a time that's historically a little on the slow side, but I think you're going to see people using that little bit of a gully to do some big announcements. I'm really interested in seeing the next chapters in video, and we're going to stay, focused on it for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to, and people are going to be out and about, and this is a consumer-generated, propelled medium. So I think there's going to be plenty of action, and we will not add too much required summer reading.
See you next week.
Onward.